super excited to share this next part of my story. The first part was very therapeutic for me too. It's the first time I've ever not just said it to thousands of people, but also just said it out loud and kind of lived that story. So it was very therapeutic for me. So the next part is going to be a little bit more details about the actual diagnosis and my process. Where we left off, I left Dr. Ross's office telling him I was going to be the best MS patient he'd ever had. And so Ken and I proceeded to drive home after that visit and to kind of just digest what we just learned, to figure out how we're going to handle the next phase of our lives together and with living with this diagnosis. So we proceeded to go to our home in Newburyport. So I went straight up to bed and took a nap, and I was emotionally exhausted, physically exhausted, just trying to wrap my head around everything. I went to bed and Ken proceeded to plan a trip. He actually planned a weekend getaway up to Boothbay Harbor, which is a beautiful coastal town in Maine. And the next morning we woke up and he packed my bag for me and we drove up north into Boothbay Harbor. We stopped on the way to pick up some books on MS and the disease, how to treat the disease and do all that. And we checked into our bed and breakfast, and it was magical scenery, beautiful day. I remember it like it was yesterday, and it was just a perfect way to start this journey. And the weekend was perfect, well, as perfect as it could be. And we came away with an action plan, or at least some more knowledge of MS and how we were going to tackle the next phase of it. Fast forward to my next appointment with Dr. Ross, and he started discussing the medication options that I had. At the time, there was only 3 or 4 medications on the market to treat MS, and they were all disease-modifying medications. So they don't treat the illness, or they don't cure the illness. They just modify it and hopefully slow the progression of it down. The first medication I tried was Rebif, and that was an injectable that I self-injected myself once a week. We had a nurse come in, do the training and all that fun stuff. That whole process was just so much for me to digest and so much for me to overcome, especially with my huge fear of needles. So over the 13 years, I tried a slew of medications, I should say, for the MS. The injectables, the IVs, having to go into the cancer center. I tried the oral medication, the self-injections. My disease progressed, and it progressed slowly, but it kept getting worse. I would go get my quarterly MRI, and there would be maybe new lesions, or the lesions grew bigger, and my symptoms grew worse. I was unable to hold a pen to write. I grew incontinent. I was not able to take a pot off the stove and put it on the counter. My skills and my daily activities were diminishing slowly. I had to hold my husband's hand and go into a store or walk around the store. And that was my reality, and it was over that time, or the 13 years, where it just kept getting worse and worse. As my disease progressed, it went beyond just my motor skills. I was having issues waking up in the morning for at least 30 to 40 minutes every day. I could not put my feet on the ground and start my day because I couldn't feel my feet. My hands were tingling every morning, both hands. I couldn't hold anything. It just became my way of life. I had really struggled with my communication. I knew what I wanted to say in my brain, but I couldn't have the ability to take my words from my brain and to speak them. My communication was suffering, and I became insecure about that. And if it was past a certain time of the day, I couldn't have a meeting. Those were my realities, and it became adding on different things each day or each week. But I always had to go back and remember my promise I made to Dr. Ross in his office that day. I was always the one who looked at the glass half full or 3/4 full. I always had a bright outlook on life, and I always tried to be happy and lift up the spirits before my sickness and after my illness as well. I complained very little, or at least I tried not to. I thought I didn't complain often. I would never say, oh, I can't feel anything. No one knew, well, besides Ken and my mom and dad, really, no one knew what I was really suffering from every day, because I didn't want those excuses or those everyday actions really define me. I didn't want to be owned by the disease. I didn't want my life, or if I complained about it, I felt that I I would have to then live it. I just wanted to do the opposite of that. I wanted to overcome this, at least mentally. At least, I could say, I'm going to have the best day ever, even if I can't feel my hands. And I truly had this negotiation with myself every morning. I always had the outlook that I had to look good to feel good, or not necessarily look good, but get ready, get ready for my day, even if my day wasn't happening to me. I still do it today. I get out of bed, I take a shower, I get dressed, do my hair, put my makeup on. Even if I have nothing to do, I always wanted to do whatever I could to make myself feel whole and well. It worked for me. I never liked talking about my disease or my diagnosis. I lived in denial, and that also worked for me. People would often get frustrated with me and say, "Hey, tell me what's going on. You don't share anything." But that was okay with me. I never liked talking about my diagnosis. It was just something that I kept to myself. It was truly a functioning survival process for me. I lived in denial, and it worked for me. I was fine with that. When someone asked how I was doing, I would say, "Great, how are you?" They'd say, "No, really, how are you doing?" And I'm like, "No, really, I'm choosing to be great today, so that's what I'm going to share with you." But it was frustrating because people who cared for me wanted to know a little bit, truly, tell me a little bit more about yourself. And even my closest friends have just recently learned some stuff about me through this video process that I'm sharing with everybody. But it worked for me, and it was okay. Me believing I was just fine was okay with me, and that was my choice. I experienced firsthand true illness, not that MS is not a true illness, but true suffering. My mother was diagnosed and struggled and went through this a terrible process with cancer. I spent many months, years actually, month by month in a infusion cancer treatment center at a hospital for one of my MS medications. So I truly believe that I didn't have it so bad, and not that I didn't have a right to complain or a right to feel pain. I just felt that I have a choice, and that was going to be how my outlook on this illness is going to handle. And getting back to Dr. Ross saying, "I'm going to own this and be the best patient you've ever had." So, guess what happens? Dr. Ross takes a position in Washington, D.C. Yay for Dr. Ross, boo for me. My confidence that I've had through 10 years, has moved on, and I'm happy for him, but I now need to establish a new relationship with a physician to help me pick up where Dr. Ross left off. I go to Mass General Hospital in Boston, to the MS Center, the best, supposedly the best of the best, and I get assigned to a physician, found a doctor through my research, and I start the whole process over again. Well, it was here at this appointment where, as an MS patient, I get MRIs 4 times a year, check the progress or progression of my disease, and it was here where I was re-diagnosed. I went from relapse remitting MS, my initial diagnosis when it first happened all those years ago, to now my new diagnosis of secondary progressive. What this means is that my disease is no longer going to fluctuate like it has in the past. A good day, bad day, good day, bad day. Progressive MS, secondary progressive MS is just how it sounds. It's going to progressively get worse. And honestly, I really wasn't surprised by this new diagnosis, as I knew I wasn't getting better. I knew that I couldn't, pick a pan off the stove. I mean, I knew I wasn't getting better, so I wasn't 100% surprised. But being at a new hospital with a new doctor and this new diagnosis, it kind of changes the story a little bit and changes my process. Thank goodness Ken was there. My first reaction was I cried, and I was in tears, as it was hard, when you live in denial and you hear the truth, it's hard to digest that. And I knew things were going to change. Ken proceeded to do what he does best and did best, and that was ask his clinical questions. Questions that, not that I didn't care about, but I really didn't have much interest at this point on the clinical questions, and I kind of lost interest, and I wanted to go home and digest what just happened and figure out again our next plan of action. You know, the doctor mentioned this new medication that just came out, again, another new medication, another disease-modifying medication. It's in the trial stages, and it's been on the market for 6 months. We're not too sure. It's something that I've heard before and previously, it's the same thing each time. And honestly, I'm a little discouraged. I mean, I followed protocol. I've been, all the other medications that are out there, it's the same story, but we needed to come up with another plan, a different force of action, and that was what our goal was.